Welcome to Little Home Projects. In this video, I build a DIY camper crib for our little camper. Before I get too far into the video, I'll just say why I chose to go with this design. I originally had planned on modifying an older discarded baby crib to fit the space, and you can see it there in the background. But I decided that it was going to be a little bit too much work to clean that old crib up, refinish it all, and also modify it to fit in the space that I wanted. So I decided to go with making something a bit more custom, and also something that is far more simple and cheap to build. So the style of this is just 4 panels screwed together. And specifically, I'm using just project board or pine board from the box store, as well as flooring plywood, which I think is just 1/8 inch thick plywood. So it's rather smooth, but it's got the marks on the one side. I either sanded that down where it was going to be visible, or just put it facing backwards so you wouldn't even spot it. I've designed this to just be a bunch of panels, so it's a piece of framed plywood with just some reinforced boards on the outside, and that way it's nice and light, and it's also very rigid and very strong. So I think this design, it just seemed very simple once I decided to go this way. I started by cutting down all my material. The wood framing that I'm using on the outside here is about 2.5 inches wide and about 3/4 inches thick. Nothing too heavy duty, but still nice and rigid. The actual size of the crib that I'm going with, it's not going to be a standard size, so the size doesn't matter to everyone else. What I did is made it match the cushions for the camper bed that was already there. So this fits my camper perfectly. I didn't have to get anything new upholstered for the mattress, and it just fits in the space. So you want to make yours to the size you'll need it to be for your camper. I started by clamping down each of the pieces of framed wood onto the plywood, but very quickly realized I don't have enough clamps to do all this at once. Like I have to do all 4 sides, each piece of wood on each side, to glue it down and hold it. So I decided to drill and screw these pieces of wood together while it dried. I know this is leaving a mark on the wood down the road, but I wasn't too concerned of the look of it, but I wanted to make sure it dried nice and straight and rigid, so I used screws to hold this wood in place while the glue dried. So after assembling the 4 different panels, I did go ahead and sand it all down nice and smooth, and stain it and varnish it. So I didn't get any video of that process because it's very boring and monotonous, but I did take the time to sand it down quite a good amount with some pretty good grit sandpaper, so that there'll be no risk of splinters, and the sealant, the lacquer that goes on the end, really does seal the wood up nice and smooth. So okay, here we can see how the finished panels came out. I'm really quite happy with the darker stain, and the lacquer just gave it a nice finished kind of look for a simple cheap product like this. Here you can see how the boards are attached to the plywood, and you can see how the frame kind of comes into place there. I am really happy with how smooth the finish this came out. I took the time to sand it down smooth, and the varnish really does seal it up nicely. Here you can see the different screw holes, so I got one every 2 or 3 inches, I think it is. But really I don't mind the look of this, having removed the screws. I did decide to leave the screw in the corner just to make sure that it would stay nice and strong, but I don't think it's too rough for baby, so I think it'll be fine. I did leave the bottom row of screws in. They're going to be hidden by the mattress, so I didn't need to take those out. I might as well leave them in there to keep it stronger, although the glue is definitely holding everything together really sturdy here. So I'm going to have to assemble this in place. It's too large to fit through the camper door, so I'll need to assemble it on top of the bed itself. I've already assembled this outside of the thing, so I know it's going to come together right. And at the same time I was doing that, I pre-drilled all the holes so that I know everything's square. And I put little markers in each of the corners, so you can see a little D in the corner there, in the top right corner there's a little B. And as long as I make sure that those all line up again when I am reassembling here, I know that all the screw holes are going to line up and everything's going to come together nice and square and fit perfectly. I have to assemble it upside down. That way all the screws screw up into the side panels, and the piece of wood on the bottom is what keeps the whole thing square. To hold each of the panels to each other, I'm going through the sides, and they're about 3-inch screws that I'm screwing through. Again, I've already pre-drilled these holes, so I know they line up and pull together square. Because I'm working with limited space here, I'm going to have to flip it over and attach the sides to each other. Once they're in place, I'll flip it back over again upside down and re-screw the bottom in. So this is the only way I can get it all together while in this small space. Okay, so a quick tour of how it is assembled. So you can see the top side by the bed versus the back are different heights. That's so it can clear the window and this plug. We will have to use a plug protector to keep the plug not accessible for the baby's sake, but that way we can still access it if we need to. As well, I want to offset it from the wall so that this can come down behind there and then push it so it's just got a little bit of space. And with that in place, I'll be securing it by screwing through to the chair underneath. So it's very similar to this chair. It's in place and can't slide left and right. It will be able to lift out, but I'm not worried about that. The baby's not going to lift it out. But that'll just keep it from shifting forwards or backwards or left or right. These are the cushions that were made for this bed, or for the camper bed, I mean to say. So they fit in nice and snug. And we should be able to use a basic crib sheet for going over those. It'll be very close in any case. So that is our basic camper crib. Pretty large compared to the amount of overall space, but this way he won't be able to get out of it. He won't be able to, when he learns how to stand, he won't be able to climb out of it right away. And he has room to move around. It can be a little bit of a playpen as well. It just kind of works as a medium size. So we wanted something that would only come out past the original flooring by an inch at most. And that's what we've got here, is full inch. And it leaves most of the walkway able. We didn't bother with slats in the front because we'll never be able to see this way anyway. We'll always be over top. And there we go. That's how this baby crib is done. Thanks for checking out this Little Home Projects video. If you want to see more of the camper crib, I actually have a second channel that is called Today We Did, and it's just sort of going through our adventures in camping and exploring and just not so much projects, but more just places to see and do locally. So feel free to check that out, as well as more content there on how this crib turned out in practice. So thanks for watching. See you next time.